monkey.
Get your sticky paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Is that a monkey?
Where are the gorillas?
Nice monkey suit.
The help of this chimp, we may have a championship season.
Monkey!
It's like I'm talking to a monkey.
No one wants to be turned into a monkey. Apes together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinemonkey. My name is Mike DePalma, and this is the only podcast that I know of that talks about monkey movies and things along that nature. And today, joining me is my good friend, actor, and writer. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Thomas LaGrange. I'm super excited to talk about monkeys today.
Yeah, and we have quite a big monkey to talk about.
Yeah.
A huge ape swinging into cinemas in the year, I believe it was 2017. Today we're talking about a movie called Kong, Skull Island. Essentially what we're going to do, we're going to go over the plot of the movie. We're going to discuss the monkey in question in the film, his impact, his role, or her. And then we'll break down if we enjoyed the film by rating it either monkey see, monkey do, or monkey see, monkey don't. So let's just kick things off here. I'll just read a quick synopsis of the credits here. So Kong Skull Island was released in 2017 by Warner Brothers Pictures and Legendary. The film stars Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, John Goodman, Brie Larson, Jing Tyne, Toby Kebbell, John Ortiz, Corey Hawkins, Jason Mitchell, Shea Wiggum, Thomas Mann, Terry Notary, and John C. Reilly. And it was directed by John Vaught Roberts, and it was written by Dan Gilroy, Max Bronstein, and Derek Connolly.
It's a huge cast.
Yeah, huge cast, and we'll discuss a lot of them because that is a stacked cast for a movie that no one talks about.
So true.
We'll kind of start things off with the plot of the film. So
Kicks off actually in the, was it like 1943?
yeah, it's
1944,
44, right at the middle or end of World War II.
Tail end of World War II, yeah. And it's two pilots that fly through to this like unknown island. And they're fighting. It's a dogfight, and they both crash. And it's this huge chase and fight, and we see a big monkey.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, this giant ape just lifts his hand up, and we smash cut to Kong Skull Island. So I love that right out the gate we do see a monkey. We just
eyeball,
just his eyeball in his hand.
And he zooms in on the eye,
and he's huge. I wrote in my notes here that this is just like such a great way to start the film, and like it's so different from everything else. I don't know. Have you seen Godzilla -1?
I have not yet.
Really so that takes place in World War II as well, right after World War II as well, and deals kind of with a similar kind of prologue to introduce you to these giant monsters and kaijus and things like that. And I also saw like in this scene, like they have like a little fight before they see Kong, and the Japanese soldier like takes out a giant samurai sword, and then John C. Reilly's character grabs it with his hands, and I'm like, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
I wrote here, Kong is a big boy.
Kong is a very big boy, 104 feet. I read.
Yeah. He's. I also read that like Sam Jackson, when filming, or all the cast were like, how big is he? And they're like, we don't know. We'll just figure it out later. But he's huge, probably the biggest Kong ever. Actually, he is the biggest Kong ever put to screen.
But right? American screen.
Because
in Godzilla vs. Kong 1962, Kong was 147 feet.
Oh, okay. Wow, you know.
I know my monkeys.
You know your monkeys and your heights and widths and weights of everything. All right. Then we jump to Vietnam time, 1973. Vietnam just ended, and we see Mr. John Goodman. Yep. He pulls up in a taxi to the Washington D.C. and he goes to the CIA. He goes, I got a meeting. He's like we gotta talk about something, and the CIA senator is
Operation
like
Monarch.
Yeah, he's like I don't want to deal with you, you crackpot. and then our good friend Corey Hawkins. I don't know anyone's names. I just know the actors in this movie.
Yeah, same. It's okay.
And so then Corey Hawkins is like, but like the Russians, and they're like, that's a good point.
That's exactly how it goes, actually. Yes.
And then they on their way, and John Goodman, before he leaves, he goes, I need a military escort. And then we cut over to Vietnam. We meet a ragtag group of soldiers that are just packing up and getting ready to go home, and you hear all their backstories, and you're like, oh boy, these are That's not going to be a problem later.
They're feeling a little bad about leaving Vietnam too. I know Samuel L. Jackson's a little mad.
Yeah, Sam Jackson's like, I this was my purpose. What's my purpose? And Toby Kebbell, is that his name? Toby Kebbell?
So.
Toby Kebbell. I'll talk more about him later.
Toby.
But Toby, he's the senior officer underneath Sam Jackson, and he's got a little boy at home, and he's trying to write a letter to his little boy, and you go, well, that's obviously that's not gonna be a problem. You know, they get a phone call from this senator, and Sam Jackson picks it up and is like, hey, I got one more job for you. You just gotta take these nerds over to this island, and so it's for just research purposes. Sam Jackson goes, thank you, sir. Like he's got purpose again. He's so good in this movie.
He really is. No, he really is.
He's just giving it his all. I also read somewhere that he picks movies, like you might wonder like why he works all the time. He apparently picks movies based on what he wanted to see as a kid, which is why he's like in Star Wars, he's in Kong, he's in the Avengers movies.
I did read that, yeah, well, that he said all they needed to say was, it's King Kong, and he was like, I'm in.
And he was the second choice.
Yeah, he wasn't even mad about that either. He was just like King Kong.
Yeah, I think they wanted
Michael
Keaton, initially, and then he dropped out because he was like, that's kind of far, and I don't want to do that for a while. And Sam Jackson's like, I don't care about my family or whatever. I'll just move on. So then we cut to Bangkok, and there we meet our hero of the movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
Kind of the lead. He is the top billed. We meet Tom Hiddleston. He's a former special forces person.
Yeah, he's like a hunter.
Let's see. He's a British Special Air Services captain.
Sure.
His name is James, because of course it is. And he's a tracker, and that's what he's important for. And they are like, listen, we're a bunch of nerds. We've never been in the field before, but you can find anything. And he's like, we're all gonna die there. And they're like, we'll pay you extra. And he goes, all right. And then we meet one other character. Her name is Mason Weaver. She's played by Brie Larson, and she's a war photographer. Kind of fun, because this is the first movie where Brie Larson and Sam Jackson interact with each other, and they have a lovely working relationship before Captain Marvel and the Marvels.
The Marvels, yeah.
And then Unicorn Store is the other movie.
Yeah.
Directed by Brie Larson. Anyway, that's a tangent. So they met on this big ape movie. So the team, they get together and they fly to the island. They're packing up and they're doing some seismic tests for some reason. And they're throwing these missiles outside of the helicopter. And it's a scene very reminiscent of Apocalypse Now.
That was a big inspiration for the movie.
Yeah. I mean, everything in this movie comes back to Apocalypse. Even the poster.
The poster is literally Apocalypse Now.
It's just Apocalypse Now, and there's a monkey in it. They land. No, they don't land, but they get to the island, and they're throwing these bombs out. And then all of a sudden, amongst the camaraderie of flying around and dropping these little seismic bombs to test the topography of the area, the density of the island. Oh yeah, because they believe that the Earth is hollow. Yeah. Because why wouldn't you?
Of course.
And then all of a sudden, a giant tree comes flying through the air and crashes through one of the pilot's faces, and that helicopter goes down. And then my favorite line in the movie, one of the characters says, "Is that a monkey?" And then you see Kong in silhouette, this giant monster just appearing in the background, silhouetted by this lovely giant sun, again akin to Apocalypse Now. He takes these helicopters down
in a pretty extended sequence.
Yeah,
too.
and
it's brutal.
Yeah, and it's brutal. It's intense. You're like, who's gonna make it? Who's gonna die? Oscar from The Office is also there.
Is he? I didn't even notice him.
He's one of like the scientists from the other crew, and he's like the leader of the other crew, and I'm just like, huh. Look, it's Oscar. Also, right before this scene happens, just to kind of jump back a little bit, Sam Jackson says a line from Jurassic Park.
Sure.
He says, "Hold on to your butts," and I'm like, "Look at that!" They're bringing it back
great
together.
Callback.
This you really see just kind of how big Kong is and kind of how resourceful he is, and just kind of swatting them, and they're throwing all these bullets and missiles at him, and he's just like,
He does get cut up though by one of the helicopters.
Yeah, he gets cut up, and he can get hurt.
He can. But I like that.
Which Sam Jackson sees and is like, I'm gonna destroy this monkey for killing all of my men. And I'm like, Sam Jackson's not wrong for like wanting revenge. He's just like, he's like this thing is awful and will kill everybody. Yeah. And I need to stop him. At the end of this sequence of all of Kong knocking down all these helicopters and scattering them throughout the island, there's this just great shot of Sam Jackson, there's fire everywhere, and Sam
Yes.
Jackson's just staring down Kong.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, it's on. I read also in some trivia that they kind of based this relationship that Sam Jackson's character has to Moby Dick. Where like Kong is his white whale. It's it's like, oh, I will do everything in my power to kill this thing and take it down because of what he's done to my men and what he kind of poses as a threat to. So I don't think he is kind of the villain of the film, or was a human villain of the film.
Yeah.
But he's not wrong for hating this creature.
No, it's justifiable. It does go a little bananas at the end.
So the group at this point is all split up. Sam Jackson and John Goodman are kind of together with a couple of Marine boys. Toby Cabal is stranded on his own. Yep. And Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston and the other nerds. All the scientists.
Corey Hawkins.
Yeah, Corey Hawkins and the other woman whose name escapes me, but she doesn't speak much in this movie.
She really doesn't. I thought by the end I was like, who is that?
So this other woman, they're kind of all together with Tom Hiddleston, who's tracking, and they kind of wander the jungle. And John Goodman and Sam Jackson are sitting down at one point because John Goodman's like recording footage of the attack, and he sees this big red paw print on the wall. And John Goodman essentially admits that when he was young, he was on a boat, I believe, and he was attacked by a monster, and he's made it his life mission to prove that these giant monsters are real. And Sam Jackson's like, you better tell me everything right now. It's John Goodman's like, we have to prove this so we can send in the cavalry. And Sam Jackson goes, I am the cavalry.
Cold line.
Yeah.
Cold line.
So many cool lines
guys.
and movements, moments in this movie. After that, we jump to the jungle. And they're going through, and one of the soldiers goes, like, have you ever heard the story of the lion and the mouse? And the guy's like, yeah, the mouse kills the lion. They're like, what are you talking about? what are you talking about there? It is kind of a big metaphor for the movie. Like, Kong is the lion and they are the mice. But like in the real story, they do become friends in the end.
They do.
And this leads to future movies in this franchise where Kong is kind of human surrogate. I don't know. You haven't seen Godzilla
I know
versus
about him,
Kong.
but I do know.
Yeah. And so he kind of represents, because you can relate more to a monkey than you do a giant lizard.
You can. Well, they make him relatable in this because his parents are like... We discover that later.
Yeah, his parents are killed by the skull crawlers and just all these like monsters and stuff that are on this island. We could discuss the monsters now. There's some great looking monsters, which I also saw was partly inspired by Pokemon.
Yes,
there's bamboo spider.
Yep, which I think that was inspired by Cannibal Holocaust.
Was it?
They said.
Oh,
damn. Yeah, which is horrible. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so
that scene's horrible though.
That scene that is seen is scary, and I believe that's literally right after they talk about the lion and the mouse. This giant. So essentially, they're walking through the bamboo forest and they're having a conversation, and then all of a sudden, one of the soldiers gets impaled by the leg of a spider that looks like bamboo, and it starts like picking them up. And just like awful and disgusting.
Really scary scene. Actually.
And generally kind of scary.
This movie pushes the limit.
Yeah, you see some gross stuff, and
you do.
And boy, did people die.
People really die. People die in this movie.
And how do they take it down? They chop off its legs.
They do.
Right?
They start pulling their machetes out. Yeah, because the bullets don't work.
Yeah, so because the spider's legs also are like
bamboo,
made of bamboo,
yeah.
So they kind of chop the legs of the spider off, and it falls down. And they shoot it in the face. Yeah. They're like scarred, and they're like, this isn't a normal island. Then our little ragtag crew of Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson and everybody,
is Shea Wiggum with them as well?
Shea Wiggum is with them.
Yeah.
Who also treasure in this movie.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah,
he's wonderful. Yeah. Just really unhinged and just like a man that's just seen war and kind of loves it.
Yeah, well, he's the only one that carries the AK-47.
Yeah. He, you want to tell that little story? Yeah, that he tells a little bit later.
Yeah, he tells as he's walking through. Yeah, he has a lot of interesting stories that he tells in this. The lion and the mouse, and the city in Vietnam, and he talks about seeing war for the first time, and that this old man who had like never fought before, he was in the Viet Cong, he killed him. Took his AK-47, and that's what he uses now for the rest of the movie. Yeah, harrowing. Yeah, just how awful war is. Like, this doesn't paint war in a good way either. It just like shows just how messed up these guys got
in Vietnam and just how some of them are like, the war is the only thing I'd love to do now.
Yeah.
And then some of them, I just want to go home.
Yep.
I just want to see my mom. Why did we do this?
And why is it that all of them are the ones who die?
Yeah. We got to ask Mr. Vaught Roberts on that.
What are your thoughts on that?
They wander around for a bit, and then they wind up they find like this kind of these ruins.
Yep.
They find a tribe there, and this tribe is very hostile towards them initially, which actually the first tribe person that they meet that points a staff at them is secretly also Brie Larson in a dual role that nobody expected and nobody knew. I couldn't tell. And the group are being threatened by these locals because they're foreigners that have landed on their island, and then out of nowhere comes this man. And he runs through the crowd and he goes, stop. These are probably people. And it's John C. Reilly. And John C. Reilly, absolute treasure in this film as well.
Really good in
he's
this,
he's great emotional moments with him, and like is very funny and just kind of plays this guy he's been on the island. It's the soldier from the start of the film from World War II. He's just been living on this island for 20 years, has gotten used to it, understands the locals, understands like, don't go out at night because you will die. And he knows like the ecology and the animals that kind of have taken over, and just kind of is like goes with the flow. He's like, listen, I saw a big monkey when I landed here, so we just deal with that. John C. Reilly kind of dumps a bunch of exposition on them.
He does. The monkey's good.
The monkey, it turns out Monkey is good and king of this part.
Yes.
These parts. And he talks them through and shows them a bunch of cave paintings of the so-called skull crawlers, as he dubs them.
Yeah,
And,
the history
and that Kong is like keeping them at bay, and these skull crawlers have killed all of Kong's kind, and so he's the last of these people, and the people respect him as long as he just kind of does his own thing, and they're like, that's Kong, and if we leave him alone, he'll leave us alone.
If you think Skull Crawlers is a dumb name, it sounded better in John C. Reilly's head.
It sure did, and he admits that, and he loves to just be like, listen, I've been alone, and these other people don't talk, so it's kind of crazy that you're listening to me right now.
So yeah.
And these people believe that if Kong was to die, the big skull crawler will emerge and then kill everybody.
Which they're not wrong, actually, we find out.
Yeah. A little bit later, turns out that happens.
Right.
We kind of cut back to Toby Cabal, and he's alone. He's agreed with Sam Jackson over the radio that he's just going to stay put, and he's going to wait for the cavalry to come and pick him up. He goes down to the beach, and he starts to drink some water, and then who comes around the corner but our good friend, Mr. Kong. And wounded from battle, and he's like, they kind of mirror each other, which is, it's kind of a cool scene because Toby Cabal did some of the motion capture for Kong. Oh, nice. So he's acting against himself in that scene. And so, like, and those two characters kind of mirror each other there, as they do in real life, because they're the same person. And, like, Toby Cabal's, like, hurt, and then Kong is also hurt, and he, like, kind of patches his own wound up as Toby Cabal is doing, and he also drinks water. And then this giant squid octopus starts to attack, and Kong just picks him up and just murks him, and then eats some sushi, and he has a great time. Drags him off. I wrote a note here: Kong's ass. They do love to show Kong's ass.
They do. They're not afraid to show us all of Kong.
No, you see, and then more so than any other. Peter Jackson wouldn't dare.
Peter Jackson could never.
Only in 2017 were we brave enough to have multiple shots of this monkey's butt.
King Kong's booty, yes.
And Kong picks up that squid and slurps him up and hauls him off. Little fun fact about the filming behind this movie: in that scene, Toby Cabal was eating red vines.
Oh, right. Oh,
so not quite, but I can only imagine how many times they're like making you like do that over and over again, and just eating so much candy. Better than the sushi, though.
Yeah, in Kong Skull Island, they said do not give
sushi. Let's not give Toby Cabal in a motion capture suit real sushi. We can CGI it.
We don't need.
Which also the CGI in this is
really good,
really strong, and really like. I know it's 2017, and the CGI in these MonsterVerse movies is really good. Yeah. Especially in this one and in Godzilla King of the Monsters as well. Sure. These monsters are really well shot, and like you see the texture on them, and it just kind of goes to show like when you take time and like plan things out. Even the spider and the skull crawlers, like they feel like a threat.
Yes.
And not that they are real, but they feel
real.
They feel authentic and real
Yes.
to this world, and you believe that these people are in danger and not like, oh, they're acting against a tennis ball.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think a lot of that comes just from like being very deliberate before shooting.
Yeah.
Of like, these are the monsters we're gonna put in. This is what they're gonna look like, and they have a lot of monsters, but not as many monsters as I think they would have liked to have had.
Yeah. I mean, this movie initially was 3 hours
3 hours,
long.
yeah. So
And they cut out some of the monsters, and it's like a giant snake or
there
something.
was a giant snake. Yeah, I think it was like an extended sequence.
Yeah,
of Tom
and
Hiddleston.
there was a scene, John C. Reilly, a little bit later. He's kind of talking to Corey Hawkins. He's like, that sounds like a bird, but it's an ant. They were gonna like mock up some ants, but apparently they're like, that's not
I wondered when he said that. I was like, "Are we gonna see?"
that was apparently an
ants?
improvisation by John C.
That's
Reilly.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Of course it was.
So Toby Cabal is over there, and then it cuts back to John C. Reilly and the crew and Tom Hiddleston, and he's like, I have this boat that I built out of a fighter, the 2 planes that went down, and turns out he became very good friends with the Japanese fighter pilot, because they were like, once we saw the monkey, it was like, well, there's no point. We just got to survive together. And they spent like 6 years or something building this boat, and they were like, but it's not worth it, or we're never gonna survive or make it, and it's just not working. John C. Reilly's like, well, if we take this boat, you guys could potentially get up north, which is where they know that there's a refuel coming to the island, and they have like 2 days to get there. And John C. Reilly's like, you're never gonna make it there in 2 days, but maybe we can with my boat. And so they spend like a day fixing up the boat, and then they get it going, and then they leave off from the tribe.
John C. Reilly goes with them.
John C. Reilly decides to go with them. That is true. He's like, well, I've done my time. If I can potentially get off this island, I might as well get off. I like to get off this island. And they go away. And what I thought was really interesting is there's this big fortress that's like around. It's made of like wood. And for some reason, they knew to build a tunnel for a boat that's never been there. But I was like, whatever. They got to get the boat. We got to get the boat out of there. Sure. And then we cut back to our good guy Toby Cabal, who's, I have notes here, named is Chapman, and he's sitting on a log, and he's writing a note to his son, and he pins up the note. And then all of a sudden the log stands up and has legs, and he freaks out and everything, and he kind of backs up, and turns out it's just like a big friendly bug. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, okay. But then a skull crawler comes out of nowhere,
which is our first interaction with him.
This is the first time we see one, and rest in peace, Toby Cabal.
Yeah, which his death, that's another one that I was like, wow, that's pushing the limits of PG-13.
Yeah, they did a lot of blood too.
Yeah, a lot of blood.
So then cuts back to the main group, and they're kind of floating down the river, and
Apocalypse Now,
and everything is fine and dandy, and everyone's like, we're doing it, we're moving. They see a flare.
John C. Reilly tells a good story, I think, about about going home, and he's like, I don't care.
Yeah, he's like, I have a wife, and she was pregnant when I left, and obviously she wasn't gonna wait for me, and that's fine. But I just want to see that they were okay. I want to know. And I want a hot dog and a beer, and I want to watch baseball. And they're like, that's nice. John C. Reilly. Yeah, and as this nice little story is being told, and they get a radio frequency from Sam Jackson. Yep. And they're like, oh, you're actually close by. They fire a flare. They're on their way. And then out of nowhere, poor Oscar from The Office gets picked off by a bird. And I'm like, well, that was just
brutal.
It's just another one. Never let your guard down. Yep. And he's killed against the bright orange sun. Yeah. The Apocalypse Now.
Again, a sun. Brutal kill. Another brutal
just
kill.
Ripped apart. And luckily, like, they don't. They show you everything, but it's on the backdrop of this
creative choice.
Yeah,
very creative choice.
Yeah, they lose another member, and they're just like, he's gone.
They do. Yeah, legit. Just let it go.
Like, well, okay, well, moving on. Nothing we can do about that. So they keep floating down the river, and they meet up with Sam Jackson and the team. Everyone gets reacquainted with each other, and
Sam Jackson's furious.
Sam Jackson's like, we're on our way to go get Toby Cabal, and they're like, well, we probably should just keep moving, like he's probably gone. He goes, we don't leave men behind, and they're like, actually that's probably fair. And then John C. Reilly's like, you shouldn't, we should just keep going, like he's probably dead. And they're like, no, we have to go get our man, which again, the right thing.
No, I respect it.
And then John C. Reilly's like, you're a bunch of good boys, we're all gonna die together. So they start heading towards Chapman's last known location. They come across this elephant graveyard, stinky pit with the corpses and the bones of Kong's parents, and
great set piece.
Who pops up out of the graves? Some skull crawlers. Then we have another fun action sequence. Where Another death. Who dies?
John Goodman.
Oh yeah, John. I forgot.
That's a great scene
Yeah,
too with the Flash.
Yeah, and I have that in my notes here. What an intense way to make this
yeah.
intense action sequence
Yes.
way more intense. It's
Yes.
like there's smoke all around because they bogs or whatever from this no man's
stinky.
land are stinky, and they throw some like gas grenades in as well. And so essentially John Goodman is documenting this trip, and he's taking pictures throughout, and he's taking photos, and Flash is struggling, and then a skull crawler is right above him, and then he eats John Goodman, and so the camera goes into the skull crawler's stomach, and
It flashes.
it flashes
all
a
around.
bunch, yeah, and he's gone. He's very dead. All these skull crawlers, or there's like one or two of them,
I think it was 2 of them.
but
Yeah,
one of
2
them has the flash going off, and the group kind of makes a circle, and you just see the flash
in
like
the
just
shadows.
going around them, and they all take a prepared stance, and John C. Reilly whips out the samurai sword
from earlier.
from his good friend. Boy, oh boy, do they fight some of these these carnivorous
And they do
birds
not go down.
and skull crawlers and
Yeah, Tom Hiddleston with a machete
Yeah.
and gas mask on slices pterodactyls out of the sky.
Yeah,
That's all you need to
It's all set also against like a flaming skull as
Yeah,
well, which is
yeah.
really, really cool. And I wrote Tom Hiddleston's action sequence is really cool, but you could clearly tell he was attacking nothing, and they added the birds
So
in later
true.
because he's just swinging.
Yep.
And they're just like, we'll just add those in.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know how to describe it. It's really just intense, and
It is.
this is a movie which is something I kind of love about it, is that like they make you like all these characters from the start.
True.
And it's a movie where you like anyone can die and anyone
Yes.
does die. Like I don't know if another movie would necessarily have the balls to kill John Goodman like
Yeah.
2/3, like
Yeah.
maybe at the end, but like this is like the second act of the film.
No, yeah, I was like, oh wow, that really is just it for him.
Yeah, that or like you're picking these characters off one by one. Like Toby Cabal is not necessarily like the biggest actor, and like
No,
probably
but
not known by a
You
lot
think
of
that he'd
people.
at least show up?
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
like,
or like they would make it to him
that's
and
it
then
for
he
him.
would die.
Yeah,
but then one
because
of the
in the scene we
yeah,
see
one of the skull crawlers coughs up the dog
Dog
tags, and Tom Hiddleston picks them up and then brings them to Sam Jackson and is like, he's dead. We gotta
Such
move
a
on.
loss.
And then Sam Jackson's like, no, no, I'm killing Kong.
Yeah.
I'm killing.
I have one mission. now.
Yeah, and some of the soldiers are like, I don't really know about that.
Lukewarm on the
and
idea.
he's like, nope, we're gonna do this. And they're like, okay, orders and orders. Kong actually comes out and he kills the
skull crawlers.
Kind of
Only thing that can kill him.
yeah, it kind of runs away, and they kind of come to realize this is probably the only solution
Yeah,
here.
we should, yeah.
But Sam Jackson is so off his rocker at this point that he's just like
He's gone so bananas.
he's gotten so bananas. This is my mission now.
I think the soldiers were behind it. But
Yeah, but they-
Hiddleston, Hawkins.
Yeah, Hiddleston Hawkins and Brie
Larson.
Larson are like,
No.
no, he's actually good. And
Yeah.
then John C. Reilly is also
like
like,
King
he's
Kong.
the king, and he needs to be like, he's the part of the ecosystem, and Sam Jackson has none of
Does
this.
not want to have, yeah.
Yeah, so Tom Hiddleston agrees. Like, he's like, let me take the civilians to safety, to the boat, and you can keep going on with your mission, and, we'll come back. Like, you gotta be back by, like, nighttime. So they say, all right, whatever. And then Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson kind of get a up-close and personal
Yes,
face-to-face
with
with Kong.
yeah.
And they kind of see him, and that's when they kind of realize, oh, there is humanity behind this beast.
Which, yeah, the director talked about that he's like an orphaned teenager, and that they wanted to make Kong like feel more human throughout this movie, more emotional.
It's so funny that he is, like, a teenager in this
He
film.
is. But he grows too, apparently.
Yeah, because he's got to fight Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla,
and
yeah.
In the Godzilla movie, I don't have the numbers, but like that was like the biggest version of
Yeah,
Godzilla ever,
yeah.
and even Godzilla grows between
Yeah.
movies, and so they're like, oh, he's got to be. We got to make
Really
him.
big.
We got to make him big.
We gotta beat King Kong.
Yeah, so Kong's a big boy, but he is just a little teen.
Yeah,
he's
mentally.
mentally he's a
He's
little
a baby.
teen. He's even though he's been on the island for who knows how long.
Hey man, Yoda was 800.
Yeah. And so they see the humanity in him, and they're like, okay, well, we have to stop Sam Jackson. So Sam Jackson's group, they grab the rest of the bombs.
Come up with a devious plan.
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna piss him off. Bring him to us, and then we're just gonna kill him.
We're gonna blow him
We're
up.
gonna blow up Kong. And so they grab the rest of the bombs from one of the downed helicopters that they find, and then they set up a little trap for Kong.
Little bog.
And Kong comes.
Yep.
Because Kong's
Angry.
not about this, and it's nighttime, and they ignite this napalm, and it's burning, and
Another great shot.
they catch him.
Knock him down, yeah.
And they knock him down, and he's knocked over, and while he's knocked over, guess who appears?
Big boy.
The big skull crawler appears out of the ground. Luckily, Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson, they come running,
Just in time.
and they're like, hey, stop. Like, he's actually good here. And Sam Jackson's like, I gotta kill him. I gotta do this. And so Tom Hiddleston gives a little speech and is like, hey, and he goes to the soldiers. He goes, let's come on. Like, we know what's going on here. This is our only savior and chance to get off this island. He's actually good here and good for the ecosystem.
Good monkey.
And then one of the soldiers who was kind of with Tom Hiddleston turns and points his gun at Sam Jackson, and the rest of the crew all point at Sam Jackson. He's like, and then they're like, okay, let's get Kong back up. And so I forget, how does Kong just stand back up?
Kong wakes up
and
sees Sam Jackson standing before him.
Oh, yes. So the rest of the group leave. They're like, we gotta get out of here. And so Sam Jackson is in front of Kong, and he gets up and squish.
It's brutal. That one was really fast. I was like, oh, well.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
No coming back from that.
The rest of the soldiers who are still alive and the civilians, they're running back to the boat. Because the big skull crawler is coming after them. They're going, and then Shea Wiggum, crazy soldier, is like, he goes, listen, get back to your mom for me.
Oh, yeah, with both of his grenades.
And then he pulls out his grenades, and he's like, I'm going to make a heroic sacrifice right now.
Absolutely.
Stares the skull crawler right down, and the skull crawler just smacks him.
Yep.
And he hits the side of the thing. I love that so much.
That's a great,
I love that they do that.
It says something.
I know people who have watched this movie, and then they're like, that was so stupid. I'm like, no, that's what makes this movie.
That's the point.
That's what makes this movie so great, is because it's like, yes, it is dumb, but also like, that guy was dumb.
It defies the expectation that he's gonna have some heroic death, right? He's gonna take the skullcrawler down, but that was dumb.
Yeah, he just
terrible
made a
choice.
dumb move.
Yes,
and
he suffered for it.
And it's like, he didn't have to do. Everyone else also knew. They were like, you didn't have to do that.
They were crying because it was such a dumb choice.
And I just love that the camera just like does like this little zoom in on the little explosion, and it's just, and then the skullcrawler's like, and then just keeps running after them. They get to the ship, and Kong comes out, and the skullcrawler fights Kong, and Kong kind of gets the best of him, and then I said Kong does this great uppercut and just like knocks him right in
He gives him an uppercut
right in the teeth, and you see it's slow motion. You see the head fly back and everything, and the skullcrawler gets the better of Kong again, knocks him down onto this boat, and then Kong is like, wait a second, and he's got this propeller chain wrapped around his arm, and he goes and picks up his arm and swings it, and then he uses this propeller as like a weapon. Yeah. Which is something that's really cool as well, is that
great set piece.
It's another great action sequence in this movie, and they just kind of duke it out, and he uses this propeller as like a kind of brass knuckles at one point, also as a blade, and then he makes a tree and he shaves it and makes it a baseball bat and just like smacks the skullcrawler, and it just shows like how resourceful Kong is. And how I've only seen I've seen the original King Kong film, and I've seen some bits and pieces from Peter Jackson's and the one from the 70s. And like, Kong is a monkey. Yes. And like, he very much is just a big monkey. Here, he is a little bit smarter than the previous Kongs, because he does make weapons. He like problem solves.
Yes. Course corrects.
He course corrects. And, he's just like, well, that wasn't working. What if I use this big tree? What if I use this propeller? And he gets the better of the skullcrawler at one point. I believe he slice it in half with this?
I think so.
Yeah, and he
wrecks it.
He wrecks this skullcrawler, snaps its neck, or does he rip its?
He rips the head, which is a callback to King Kong.
Yeah, so he picks up the skullcrawler and he rips off his jaw. Yeah. If you've seen any iteration of King Kong, he fights a giant T-Rex usually, and that's how he kills it, is he rips the jaw off. So signature move. Yeah.
King Kong's go-to.
King Kong's go-to move. And so Kong wins. Kong's king of the island once more. The group, the remaining soldiers, and Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson, they leave the island and they fly back home. Yep. And then it cuts to the credits. And during the credits, we see John C. Reilly. He goes home. His wife has been waiting for him. He meets his son. He gets a beer. He gets a hot dog, and he kicks up his feet. And it's just really nice.
Yes. Yeah, that was a genuinely emotional credit. I was like, oh, I'm choking up a little bit.
Yeah, like, my mom loved that scene in this
great scene.
And then there's a post-credit scene where Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston, I keep forgetting his name. He's in this movie, but also he's not the focus.
No, he's not.
Even though he's the lead. But
it's an ensemble.
This is an ensemble film, yeah. And he is there, and he's like, we're not gonna talk about the island if you don't want us to talk about the island.
And then she says, "You're gonna tell the Russians."
And, yeah, and then Brie Larson's like, I'll just tell the Russians everything, and they're like, we believe you. And Corey Hawkins walks in with the other woman, and they sit down, and they're like, this is so much bigger than you believe. And then they show a picture of Godzilla, and they're like, oh my god. And then it cuts to black, which leads into Godzilla King of the Monsters. Yeah. So overall, what a fun movie this is. But now let's get into what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about the monkey. And we kind of discussed a little bit throughout. Kong in this is our main monkey, as you probably have figured out by this point, and by the title. Yep. He's such a interesting player in this, and like you went back and you watched the original.
I did watch the original. Yes.
How does he compare to a Kong from 1933? Yeah.
In 33, Kong is a lot more belligerent.
Yeah.
Just kind of killing at will. Whereas, like you said before, in this one, Kong is more resourceful. He fights when he has to. He doesn't seek that squid out. Right?
Yeah.
The squid attacks him, and he reacts. He's a little more reactionary in this. But also, the 33 King Kong is really just an effects show. During that whole sequence, it's really just, check out how cool King Kong is. Look, he just killed that T-Rex. Bet you couldn't kill a T-Rex. Whereas Kong Skull Island's more story-focused. Like, what purpose does King Kong serve in this story?
And we've also mentioned this is the biggest version of King Kong put to screen, and he only gets bigger as the movies go on. Yep. And it's kind of amazing that this is one of 3 cinematic universes. This is kind of like the little cinematic universe that no one remembers exists.
True.
So you have Godzilla, you have this film, which is the second movie in the franchise, and then you have Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is not as good. And then you have the Godzilla and Kong films. You just kind of see in Godzilla vs. Kong, and then from the trailers of Godzilla Kong New Empire, I gotta say the whole title, where you see Kong mature and age, because they said that this is the teenage version of him.
Yeah.
And in Godzilla Kong, which we'll talk about on another podcast, he is older, he's kind of wiser. And then in the new one, you could kind of see, at least from the trailers, he gets gray hair. He's becoming an older monkey.
He's stressed. Look,
he's seen some stuff.
Monster fighting is not an easy job.
And this is a King Kong movie where it references a bunch of the other King Kong movies from the past, but it doesn't do the classic, there's no big building. He's stuck on the island the entire time. And that is kind of interesting, because that is an interesting portion. I remember you were talking to me earlier about the stuff on Skull Island kind of was the boring stuff of the movie, which is so interesting.
It's a great effect.
Yeah, because I even know with Peter Jackson's King Kong, he loved that sequence so much, and that's gross and different in other ways. And Skull Island is supposed to be this island of where time forgot, God kept creating. I think they say in this movie. It's interesting that they also didn't go with dinosaurs for this movie.
No, I know. I was
surprised. That's probably because they knew that they were building up to Godzilla, which is just a giant lizard as well. Yeah. And I know people are like, well, Godzilla is so much more powerful, and even in Godzilla's movies, where he has nuclear blasts, and so Kong and Godzilla are a little outmatched. Yeah. And you haven't seen the first Godzilla Kong movie, and I won't spoil. There is a winner to the fight.
Yeah, I assume. I'm assuming the winner is King Kong.
I won't say.
All right.
You gotta watch it on your own time. But there is a winner in those films. I'm just so shocked as to how people don't talk about this movie, and I do know that there are people who don't like this movie, which is fair.
It's also true. Critics like this movie.
This movie.
Except for the Guardian. Guardian hated it. Guardian really hated it.
Yeah. What was the?
Guardian gave it a 20 out of 100.
Oof.
Yeah, rough.
No, they're so wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Roger Ebert's crew gave it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
In comparison, the Peter Jackson King Kong was 25 feet tall.
So this guy's a lot bigger.
This guy's really big.
This guy's a lot bigger. I mean, he's swatting these helicopters from the ground. Here's another fun fact about Toby Cabal. I keep probably mispronouncing that guy's name the whole podcast. But he, on one of my other favorite monkey movies, which we'll talk about a couple episodes, is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. In that film, he plays an ape called Koba. I don't know if you've seen that.
They're really solid.
He's a villain in that movie. He's the bad ape. What a performance from him there, and he kind of takes over from Andy Serkis from the Peter Jackson King Kong movies. He's kind of the secret go-to, if you can't afford Andy Serkis should go to Toby Kebbell to play a monkey or a motion capture thing. Yeah.
This was a big Avengers
This
cast.
is a lot of Avengers in this movie.
I want to say the casting director casts for Marvel. So
I mean, if that's true, I mean that's
Sarah Holly Finn.
Did she do this movie?
Yeah, she did this movie.
Oh well, then there you go. Yeah,
I saw her name and I was like,
which makes so much sense.
Yes,
because you have Tom Hiddleston, who was Loki.
Yep.
Sam Jackson,
Brie
who
Larson.
was Nick Fury.
Yep.
Brie Larson with Captain Marvel. One of the soldiers, if you've seen the show Loki, he's like one of like the office workers in Loki.
Yeah.
Toby Kebbell, poor guy, wasn't in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but he played Doctor Doom in the Fanforstic movie.
So technically,
yeah. John C. Reilly in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Marvel
alum.
Yeah.
I also just remember when you were watching this movie, you texted me, you're like, are all the monster movies like this? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
They're not all as fun as this one, because the Godzilla movies in particular are very serious. And like, this is a serious movie, but it's also a lot of fun.
It is, yeah.
Like, there are characters cracking some jokes every once in a while.
Yes.
And it's not quite a Marvel movie either,
No.
where like everyone's quipping all the time.
No.
But like, you just kind of have fun
It
seeing
doesn't take
these
itself
characters.
so serious.
Yeah, like John C. Reilly and Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston every once in a while,
Yeah.
they'll like throw a little quip out there, but it's not like, can you believe that happened?
He's right behind me, isn't he?
Yeah,
It's just King Kong.
there's Kong. I shouldn't have said those things. Yeah. Something else I noticed as well just is that in the opening credits of the movie, I saw the costume designer was the wife of the director.
Did notice that.
And
yes.
I will say she did a great job.
She did. Yeah. A lot of care, because she did. She made sure that John Goodman's outfit was a near replica of Robert Armstrong's from the 33.
Oh,
King
cool.
Kong. Yeah.
See, there's like little things like that
Little
throughout
things,
this movie that
it's made with love.
Yeah, it's made with love. I kind of love that it's not just a remake of King Kong.
No,
there's so many of those, and I'm sure we'll look at those later. But,
There are a lot.
Because there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of sequels and spin-offs and other kind of things. But it's a reimagining of King Kong. So I'll ask you, Thomas, is this a monkey see, monkey do, or is this a monkey see, monkey don't?
This is a drop what you're doing in Monkey See. This is I highly recommend this movie.
Yeah, this is for sure a monkey see, as you could tell from our excitement and our love of and us being from the get go. This was so great. This was
kind of open with that. Yeah, it was spoiler.
Yeah, so this was an interesting movie. I highly recommend it if you're only watching monkey films. Get to it. You don't have to watch Godzilla also before this, the Gareth Edwards film, because this takes place kind of before in the timelines. This kind of is the first movie in the franchise.
Because it takes place in the 70s.
Yeah, so
it's an origin story.
It's a good time. Highly recommend. Do check it out.
It's on HBO Max.
It's on HBO Max as of
Max.
as of recording.
Yeah, that's true. It should stay there for a while.
Yeah, it is a Warner Brothers property.
Yeah, so it should be there for a while.
So
but if it's not, sorry.
So this was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us today, Thomas. Is there anything you want to promote? You want to talk about?
Hire me.
Yes, we're both looking for jobs.
At the time of recording.
At the time of recording, we're both unemployed.
No. What do I have to promote right now? I've got an up-and-coming short on Fireface Films. It's an action movie. I've also got some stuff on there that I did stunts for. So check out Fireface Films on YouTube.
Fireface Films on YouTube. And also before we end this, I gotta ask, do you like monkeys?
Do I like monkeys? I do like monkeys. I like monkeys a lot. I see us in monkeys. I see myself in monkeys. I love them. I think that's why King Kong's the good guy.
Yeah. We can relate
to the gorilla
them.
guy.
Yeah.
That's
and
always.
Gotta love monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
It's something I'm asking most of my guests on, just to see if they enjoy them, because
how could you be on this show and not like monkeys?
You'd be surprised. Some people were like, I don't know why. Like I agreed to do this because you're my friend. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Thomas. Let me just close out the show here. So if you want to support the show, I really do appreciate that. You can always give us a 5-star review in your podcaster of choice. If you want to help me out a little bit, I have an Amazon affiliate link that I'm going to post in the description. I want to thank Elias for the logo, and thank you so much for listening. What's a fun way to close out the show? Last time I said go bananas.
I already said go bananas twice.
Yeah.
Doing it a third time is to lose the goodwill of your audience. I don't know. should the Seinfeld playoff in my head. I don't know.
All right, I'll try to find a Seinfeld playoff with some monkeys. All right,
Oh.
thank you so much. All right, have a good one. See you. Bye.
Peace.